Welcome, dear dreamer. You have arrived at Sleep Drift Tales. This is a quiet corner of the night. Here stories are woven to guide you gently into rest. Every tale is created to ease your mind, to slow your breath, to carry you softly into peaceful sleep. If you would like to return to this calm whenever you need it, press subscribe. Let these journeys wait for you each night. Tonight's story is The Rain Weaver, a midnight tale with soft brown noise. Every drop of rain becomes a thread of comfort. Every whisper brings you closer to dreams. Close your eyes, breathe deeply. The weaving of rain begins. The evening mist has settled low tonight, pooling in the hollows between ancient stones, gathering close around the eaves of houses that have stood for countless seasons. Here, in this village, that time has touched with gentle hands. The rain begins its quiet counting, one drop, then another. Then 100 more, falling soft against the thatch and timber, against the worn cobbles that remember the footsteps of generations. You can hear it now, this patient percussion of the sky, as it finds every surface willing to receive it. The rain speaks in whispers to the slate and shingle, in murmurs to the moss that cushions the foundation stones, in sighs to the gutters that guide its wandering down toward the earth. Each sound is a thread of comfort woven into the fabric of the night. The lanes between the houses run narrow and crooked, following paths that were made not by planning, but by the natural flow of feet seeking shelter, seeking warmth, seeking the quiet sanctuary of home. Tonight these lanes shine with a gentle gleam of rain-wet stone, reflecting the amber glow that seeps through shuttered windows, the soft light that speaks of hearths kept burning low, of embers that will hold their warmth until dawn. At the heart of this village, where 3 lanes meet beneath the spreading arms of an oak that has counted more storms than memory can hold, stands a house different from the others, only in the way it seems to listen more deeply to the rain. Its windows are dark, but not with emptiness, rather with a kind of purposeful quiet that comes when someone is attending to work that requires the fullest attention. Work that must be done in the hours when the world grows still. Pure lives the one the village has always known simply as the Weaver, though few could say what it is that gets woven in those quiet hours, or what loom shapes the patterns that bring such peace to the sleeping streets. The Weaver moves through the house with steps that make no sound on the worn wooden floors, pausing at each window to listen to the particular voice of rain as it strikes that pane, that sill, that section of roof above. For the rain speaks differently to each surface it touches. Against the thick glass of the diamond pane windows, it taps with fingers light as a child's, creating patterns of sound that shift and change, like music played on crystal. Along the gutters that run beneath the eaves, it chatters and burbles, telling stories of clouds and wind and the long journey down from sky to earth. On the broad leaves of the herb garden behind the house, it drums with gentle insistence, each drop adding its voice to a chorus that has been singing since the first green things learned to grow. The Weaver knows each of these voices, knows how to listen for the threads of sound that can be gathered and held, spun into something that carries comfort to those who need rest. For this is the weaver's gift, to take the endless music of the rain and shape it into patterns that can cradle a weary mind, that can wrap around restless thoughts and gentle them into quiet. Tonight, as every night when the rain falls steady and sure, the weaver prepares to work. The tools are simple hands that know the weight of invisible things, ears that can distinguish between the whisper of water on wood and the sigh of water on stone, and a heart that holds the knowledge passed down through generations of those who understood that sleep is not just rest but craft, not just ending but beginning. In the room where the work will be done, shadows gather soft in the corners, and the sound of rain on the roof above creates a canopy of comfort, a shelter within shelter. The weaver moves to the center of the room, where the night's work waits not on any loom that eyes could see, but on the invisible frame that holds the patterns of peace, the warp and weft of dreams that will cover the village like a blanket woven from the rain itself. The first threads are always the hardest to gather, for they must be drawn from the chaos of the storm, from the wild scatter of drops that have not yet learned their rhythm. But the weaver's hands are patient, and slowly, one by one, the threads begin to show themselves strands of sound, so fine they might be made of moonlight, so strong they could hold the weight of every worry and transform it into something soft enough to rest upon. From the gutters comes a thread silver bright with the sound of water finding its way home. From the puddles in the lane comes a thread deep and round as a bell made of glass. From the steady drumming on the thatch above comes a thread that carries the warmth of shelter, the security of walls that have weathered every storm and stood firm. One by one, the weaver gathers these threads, feeling their texture between fingers that know the difference between the sound of rain on new wood and rain on timber that has seasoned through decades of weather. Each thread carries its own giftsome, bring the peace of repetition, others the comfort of constancy, still others the gentle insistence that all things pass, that morning will come, that rest is not just permitted but necessary. As the threads accumulate, held in hands that know their weight though they cast no shadow, the village around the weaver's house settles deeper into its own rhythm of night. In the house to the east, where the baker lives above the warm ovens that will wake before dawn, the steady patter on the window panes has already begun its work, drawing tight the curtains of sleep around eyes grown heavy with the day's labors. In the cottage to the west, where the old woman tends her garden with hands gentle as rain itself, the sound of water in the gutters speaks of growing things, of seeds that will drink deep and rise toward light, and her breathing grows as steady as the drops that fall from eve to earth. All through the village, the rain is doing its quiet work, touching each roof, each window, each doorstep with the same patient attention. It pools in the worn hollows of the cobblestones, creating mirrors that reflect the soft glow of lamplight from behind shuttered windows. It runs down the walls, in streams, so small they make no sound. Yet each one carries the promise that the stones will drink deep and hold the coolness through tomorrow's heat. The weaver feels all of this, hears it in the intricate symphony of water finding its way through the village, and knows that tonight the threads will be particularly strong, particularly ready to hold the weight of dreams and carry them safely through the dark hours until dawn. For rain like this patient, steady, neither too gentle nor too fierce, creates the finest threads, the ones that can be woven into patterns strong enough to last until morning. In the distance, beyond the edge of the village where the lanes give way to fields and the fields to forest, a stream that was born from just such rain as this runs full and content between its banks, adding its voice to the night's chorus. The weaver listens for this sound too, for it carries threads of a different quality, deeper, more sustained, speaking of water that has found its purpose, that knows its destination and moves toward it with quiet certainty. These threads, when they come, will form the foundation of tonight's weaving, the strong base upon which all the other sounds can rest. For the weaver has learned through years of listening that the deepest peace comes not from silence, but from sounds that have settled into their natural rhythm, sounds that ask nothing but offer much. The rain continues its patient work, neither hastening nor slowing, but maintaining that steady tempo that speaks to something deep in the human heart, something that remembers the safety of enclosed spaces, the comfort of being warm and dry while the world outside washes itself clean. It is a sound that has accompanied sleep since the first shelters were built, the first fires kindled against the night, and as the weaver stands in the center of the quiet room, hands beginning to move in patterns older than memory, the rain keeps its faithful count, one drop, then another, then 1,000 more, each one a gift to those who know how to listen, each one a thread in the great tapestry of rest that will cover the village like a blessing before the night is done. The rain will keep watch tonight, as it always does. The threads are beginning to gather, silver and strong and ready for the weaving. The village breathes with the rhythm of water on wood, water on stone, water on earth. You can rest now. The night has barely begun its work. The roof above the weaver's workroom slopes at angles that have grown familiar over years of listening, each plane and edge creating its own particular music when the rain arrives. Tonight, that music comes in layers. The quick patter on the steepest sections where the water hurries down, the slower drumming on the gentler slopes where drops gather courage before letting go, and the soft percussion where rain meets the wooden gutters that run like rivers in miniature along the eaves. The weaver moves through the room with steps that disturb nothing, ears tuned to each distinct voice in the symphony above. For this is where the finest threads are born in, that space between sky and shelter, where rain learns the architecture of rest, where water becomes the lullaby that will sing the village into sleep. From the northern eave, where the gutter runs full and steady, toward the rain barrel that stands beneath the corner spout, comes a thread that carries the music of abundance. The water here has gathered strength from the full breadth of the roof, and it flows with purpose, speaking in a voice both constant and changing as small leaves and twigs join the current. creating tiny variations in tone that add richness to the overall song. The weaver's hands move to catch this thread, feeling its weight, its texture substantial as braided silk, yet flexible enough to be woven through the other strands without overwhelming their gentler voices. This will be a thread that provides structure, that holds the other sounds in their proper relationship to each other, like the strong cord that runs through a tapestry and keeps all the finer work in place. As these threads accumulate, held in hands that know their weight, though they cast no shadow, the weaver begins to sense the pattern that wants to emerge tonight. For each evening's weaving is different, shaped by the particular quality of rain, the specific needs of those who will sleep beneath its influence, the subtle variations in temperature and humidity and barometric pressure that make each storm as unique as a fingerprint. Tonight, the pattern speaks of deep rest, of the kind of sleep that comes when the body finally remembers it is safe, when the mind releases its grip on the day's concerns and allows itself to float on the tense, steady rhythm of water finding its way home. The threads that come from the eaves tonight are strong but not harsh, varied but not chaotic, constant but not monotonous, is exactly what is needed to weave comfort for a village that has worked hard and deserves its rest. In the house next door, separated from the weaver's dwelling by walls thick enough to hold secrets, but thin enough to share warmth, an old man sits by his window and listens to the rain on his own roof. He has lived in this village for 70 years, through summers that baked the cobblestones and winters that turned the lanes to rivers of mud. And he knows the sound of rain on every type of roof, every style of gutter, every grade of shingle. Tonight he hears something in the rain that makes him smile, though he could not say exactly what it is. Perhaps it is the way the water seems to fall, not just on his roof, but through it, as if the rain were finding its way into the very beams and joists, blessing the house from peak to foundation. Or perhaps it is the rhythm, so steady and sure that it seems to match the beating of his heart, so that for a moment he cannot tell where the rain ends and his pulse begins. Whatever it is, he finds his eyes growing heavy, his breathing deepening, to match the patient tempo of the drops against his window pane. Without realizing it, he has begun to participate in the weaver's work, adding his own thread to the pattern, the slow, regular sound of breath drawn and released, the quiet creaking of his chair as he settles more deeply into its embrace. Across the lane, in a house where a young mother rocks her baby by lamplight, the rain on the roof above creates a counterpoint to her soft humming, the two sounds weaving together into something that soothes both mother and child. The baby's eyes, which had been wide with the restless energy of the very young, begin to flutter closed, and the mother feels her own shoulders relaxing as the rhythm of rain and breath and heartbeat merge into one gentle pulse. The weaver senses these additions to the pattern, feels how the threads that come from human presence strengthen and complicate the weaving in ways that make it more beautiful, more complete. For the craft is not one of domination, but of collaboration. The rain provides the raw material. The eaves and gutters and surfaces shape its voice, but it is the sleeping village itself that gives the final pattern its meaning. From the marketplace at the village center comes another kind of thread. Here the rain falls on cobblestones worn smooth by centuries of feet, creating pools that reflect the few lanterns kept burning through the night. The sound is different here, broader and more resonant, as if the open space gives the rain room to spread its voice, to speak in fuller tones than it can manage in the narrow lanes between houses. This thread, when it reaches the weaver's hands, carries with it the essence of shared space, of community, of the knowledge that rest comes more easily when it is shared with others. It will become part of the pattern that connects house to house, sleeper to sleeper, creating a web of peace that covers not just individual rooms, but the entire village. Being at the edge of the marketplace adds its own voice to the night's chorus. Here the rain falls on slate tiles that ring like bells when struck, and the gutters are newer, made of metal that sings when the water runs through it. The sound is brighter than that of the older houses, more musical, and it carries threads that speak of travelers finding rest, of strangers welcomed into warmth, of the particular peace that comes when one has walked far and finally found a place to lay down the burdens of the road. In the stable behind the inn, horses stamp and whinny softly in their stalls, but even they seem affected by the rain's patient rhythm. Their breathing grows slower, their movements less restless, as if they too understand that this is a night for rest, not for the alertness that might be needed on a journey. The weaver feels all of these threads accumulating, each one adding its voice to the growing symphony of the night. The pattern is becoming clearer now, a simple repetition, but a complex weaving that speaks to every need, every worry, every hope for peaceful sleep that exists within the village boundaries. From the church at the far end of the main lane comes a thread that carries particular authority here. The rain falls on stone and slate, on surfaces that have weathered centuries of storms, and the sound it makes is deep and sure, like the voice of the earth itself speaking comfort to its children. The bell tower rises into the rain, and the water runs down its sides in streams that catch the faint light from the windows and break it into fragments that dance like stars. This thread, when it comes to the weaver's hands, carries weight beyond its sound. It speaks of endurance, of faith, of the knowledge that morning will come no matter how dark the night seems. It will anchor the pattern, provide the deep foundation upon which all the other threads can rest securely. But the graveyard beside the church adds its own quiet voice. For here the rain falls on stones carved with names and dates, on ground that holds the sleep of generations. But there is no sadness in this thread when it comes to the waver-only peace. The deep peace that comes from being part of something larger than oneself. Something that connects past and future in an unbroken chain of rest and renewal. As the night deepens and the threads continue to gather, the weaver begins to sense that tonight's pattern will be particularly strong, particularly suited to the needs of those who will sleep beneath its influence. The rain shows no sign of stopping, no hint of the fickleness that sometimes mars a storm's gift. Instead, it continues its patient work, providing thread after thread of exactly the quality needed. From every eave, every gutter, every surface where water meets wood or stone or earth, the threads continue to come. Some are fine as silk, others strong as rope. Some carry the brightness of metal, others the warmth of wood. Some speak in whispers, others in songs, but all carry the same essential message, that this is a night for rest, that the work of day is done, that peace is not just possible but guaranteed. The rain will keep its patient count through all the hours until dawn. The threads hold strong and true, ready for the weaving. The village breathes with the rhythm of water finding its home. You can rest now. The gathering continues, and every sound promises comfort. In the room where the night's true work begins, shadows have settled thick as velvet around corners that know the weight of countless quiet hours. Here, beneath the broad oak beam that spans the cylinder timber cut from trees that grew. When the village was young, the weaver begins the delicate task of placing the gathered threads upon the loom that exists in the space between seen and unseen, between the rain's voice and the listener's heart. The beam above bears the marks of its long, service-smooth places, where hands have brushed against it in passing. Small notches where tools have hung through decades of use. Dark stains where smoke from winter fires has seasoned the wood to the color of earth after rain. Tonight, the beam, seems to pulse with the rhythm of the rain above, as if it too participates in the night's work, lending its strength to support not just the physical roof, but the invisible architecture of dreams being built below. The loom itself cannot be described in words that speak of wood and metal, for it is made of things more subtly. Steady pulse of rain on thatch, the patient breathing of the village as it settles toward sleep. The accumulated wisdom of countless nights when peace has been woven from storm and scattered among those who need it most. Yet for all its ethereal nature, the loom is as real as anything built by human hands, and the weaver approaches it with the respect due to any tool that has never failed in its purpose. The first thread to be placed always. The first is the one that comes from the deepest source, the rain that falls on the roof directly above this room. This thread carries within it the essence of shelter, the primal comfort of being dry while water falls, safe while wind blows, warm while the world outside grows cold. The weaver places it with ceremony, feeling how it settles into position like the first note of a song that will grow to fill the night with harmony. From this central thread, the others find their places. The silver thread from the gutters runs parallel, adding its voice of abundance, of water finding its proper path. The delicate threads from the gentle eaves weave between them, creating spaces where smaller sounds can rest, the whisper of rain on leaves, the sigh of wind through branches, the soft percussion of drops hitting earth. As each thread finds its position, the pattern begins to reveal itself. This is not a weaving that follows any design drawn on paper or held in memory, for each night's rain speaks differently. Each evening's needs require their own unique response. Instead, the pattern grows organically, like a plant reaching toward light, finding the shape that serves its purpose most perfectly. In the house across the lane, where the widow keeps her lamp burning low beside the bed, where she has slept alone for 3 years now. The first threads of the night's weaving begin their work. They slip through the spaces between shutter and window frame, not as sound now, but as something more fundamental, the essence of comfort, distilled from rain and refined by the weaver's patient craft. The widow feels them first as a loosening in her shoulders, a slow release of the tension she carries like a familiar burden. Her breathing, which had been shallow with the day's accumulated worries, begins to deepen, to match the steady rhythm of the rain. The threads wrap around her thoughts, not smothering them, but gentling them, transforming the sharp edges of grief into something softer, more bearable. She does not know of the weaver's work few in the village do, for the craft requires secrecy as much as skill. But she knows that on nights like this, when the rain falls steady and sure, sleep comes more easily, dreams arrive more gently, and morning brings with it a peace that seems to have grown from the storm itself. The pattern on the loom grows more complex as threads from every part of the village find their places. From the inn comes a thread that speaks of hospitality, of strangers made welcome, and it weaves through the others like a golden cord, connecting house to house, sleeper to sleeper, creating a web that encompasses not just the permanent residents, but all who seek rest within the village boundaries tonight. A merchant who has traveled far today lies on a bed that is not his own, in a room where the ceiling beams are painted with unfamiliar shadows. But as the thread from the inn settles around him, he feels the strangeness fade, replaced by something that speaks of home not as a place, but as a state of being, the knowledge that he is safe, that his goods are secure, that he can release his grip on the day's concerns and trust the night to carry him gently toward morning. From the baker's house comes a thread warm with the heat of ovens that will wake before dawn, and it carries within it the promise of bread rising, of yeast working its quiet magic while the world sleeps, of the certainty that morning will bring not just light but sustenance. This thread weaves itself through the pattern in spirals, creating pockets of warmth that will comfort those who wake in the small hours when the body's fires burn lowest. The baker herself feels this thread's work as she lies beside her husband, listening to his breathing settle into the deep rhythm of complete rest. Her hands, which have kneaded dough until they know its texture better than silk, relax against the blankets, and she allows herself the luxury of complete stillness, knowing that the bread will rise whether she watches over it or not, that some work is best done without conscious attention. From the house where the village healer lives alone with her cats and her dried herbs hanging from every rafter comes a thread that carries the essence of restoration, of bodies learning to repair themselves, of the deep healing that can only happen in sleep. This thread is finer than the others, but perhaps stronger, for it must carry the hopes of everyone who has ever been sick or hurt or worn down by the simple burden of living. The healer, whose days are spent in the careful work of tending others, feels this thread settle around her like a blanket woven from her own compassion, returned to her multiplied. Her pulse, which often races with concern for her patients, slows to match the steady drip from the eaves outside her window. and she allows herself to trust that healing happens in its own time, at its own pace, guided by wisdom deeper than human knowledge. The loom beneath the beam accommodates them. Every thread finds its place. Every voice adds its note to the growing symphony. From the houses where children sleep comes threads bright as colored yarn, carrying the quick energy of young dreams, the restless movement of growing bodies, learning to be still. From the houses where the old rest comes, threads deep and rich as burgundy, carrying the weight of experience. The hard-won knowledge that peace is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of acceptance. In the house where the blacksmith lives with his wife and 3 small children, the rain on the roof creates a sound different from all others. Here the metal tools hanging from the rafters catch and reflect the rhythm, adding a subtle chiming that speaks of work well done, of iron shaped by strong hands into things both useful and beautiful. The thread that rises from this house carries the satisfaction of craft mastered, of purpose fulfilled, of the deep tired that comes from good work honestly performed. The blacksmith's wife, heavy with their 4th child, finds in this thread exactly what she needs, a promise that her body knows. Its work as surely as her husband's hands know theirs. That the new life growing within her will find its own time and way, guided by the same patient wisdom that shapes iron into horseshoes and rain into lullaby. The children in their small beds feel the thread's work too, though they could not name it. Their dreams, which might have been wild with the day's excitement, gentle into stories of rain and warmth, and the certain knowledge that morning will come with bread and milk, and the sound of their parents moving about, the familiar work of beginning another day. The pattern on the loom grows richer and more intricate as the night deepens. Threads from every corner of the village find their places from the house where the old teacher lives, surrounded by books that hold the wisdom of ages. From the cottage where the seamstress works by lamplight to finish a wedding dress that will be worn when the rain stops. From the small dwelling where the village musician keeps his instruments wrapped in soft cloth against the damp. Each thread carries not just sound but story, not just rhythm but meaning. The teacher's thread speaks of lessons learned and passed on, of the continuity that connects generation to generation. The seamstress's thread carries the patience required for fine work, the knowledge that some things cannot be hurried, but must be allowed to grow in their own time. The musician's thread hums with melodies half remembered and fully felt, with the understanding that music and rain are cousins, both speaking directly to the heart without need of translation. As these threads weave together on the loom beneath the beam, they create something greater than the sum of their parts, a pattern that encompasses not just individual rest but collective peace, not just personal dreams but shared hopes. The village as a whole begins to breathe with one rhythm, to settle into sleep like a single great creature finding its nest. The weaver works with hands that know this craft as deep as bone, that have learned through years of practice exactly how much tension each thread requires, exactly where each voice belongs in the greater chorus. There is no hurry in this work. Rain does not hurry. Sleep does not hurry. Peace cannot be rushed, but must be allowed to grow at its own pace. From the edge of the village, where the houses give way to fields and the fields to forest, comes a thread different from all the others. This one carries the voice of the wild places, rain falling on grass and leaves and earth that knows no human touch. It speaks of the great rhythm that encompasses all smaller rhythms, the vast breathing of the world itself, the patient turning of seasons and cycles that makes all rest possible. This thread, when it finds its place on the loom, provides the foundation that supports all others, the reminder that human rest is part of something larger, that the peace woven in this room tonight is connected to the peace of growing things, sleeping animals, rivers running full with rain toward seas that have no need of hurry. The beam above reflects the lamplight in its ancient wood, casting shadows that dance with the rhythm of the rain. The loom holds steady, neither rushing nor delaying, but maintaining the perfect pace that allows each thread to find its proper place, each voice to add its note to the song of rest that will cover the village like a blessing before dawn comes to wake the world to new work. The rain continues its patient count, steady as heartbeat, sure as breath. The threads hold strong in their weaving, creating patterns of peace that will last until morning brings its own gifts. The loom beneath the beam works its quiet magic, transforming the raw material of storm into the finished goods of dreams. You can rest now. The weaving takes shape, and every thread promises comfort until dawn. The deepest part of the night has arrived, that hour when even the most wakeful souls begin to feel the weight of darkness pressing gently on their eyelids. When the village settles into the profound stillness that comes only when rain has been falling long enough to wash away the last echoes of the day. In the weaver's room, the pattern on the invisible loom has grown, so complex, so richly textured, that it seems to shimmer with a life of its own, each thread reflecting not just sound, but the very essence of peace. The weaver moves now with the slow grace of one who knows that the most important work is nearly done, that the careful placement of thread upon thread has created something that can support the weight of an entire village's dreams. The hands move without hurry, for hurry has no place in work. Like this, each gesture is as measured as the rain's own rhythm, as patient as water finding its way home. From the loom, the first tendrils of completed pattern begin to drift outward, moving through walls that cannot stop them, settling over roofs and seeping through shutters to find those who most need their touch. This is not sound now, nor even the memory of sound, but something more fundamental, the distilled essence of comfort, aged in storm and refined by the weaver's ancient craft. In the house where the old man sits beside his window, these first gifts settle around him like a blanket woven from moonlight and rain. His eyes, which had been fighting the pull of sleep, finally surrender, closing with the slow certainty of doors that know they will not need to open until morning. His breathing deepens, matching the steady drip from the eaves, and his last conscious thought is of how good it feels to let go, to trust the night to carry him safely through the dark hours. The rocking chair where he sits cradles him with familiar arms, and in his dreams he walks again through gardens that bloomed in his youth, hearing rain fall on leaves that rustled with the same gentle voice he remembers from nights when the world seemed full of endless possibility. The pattern wraps around these dreams, not changing them but softening their edges, making them more real than memory, more peaceful than regret. Across the lane, the young mother has long since carried her sleeping baby to the cradle beside her bed. But she remains wakeful, caught in that particular alertness of those who have learned to listen, even in sleep, for the smallest sound that might signal need. The pattern finds her there, settling around her like understanding itself, reminding her body that rest is not selfish but necessary, that she can serve others better when she has first served herself. Her shoulders released tension she did not know she carried, and her breathing slows to match her child's, creating a rhythm that speaks of the deep connection between mother and baby, a harmony that the pattern enhances rather than disturbs. In her dreams, when they come, she walks by it in a garden where every plant grows exactly as it should, where every season brings its proper gifts, where the rain falls with perfect timing to nourish but never to flood. The pattern spreads through the village like ripples on a pond, finding its way into every house, every room, every corner where sleep is needed but does not come easily. In the inn, the traveling merchant no longer starts at small sounds, the settling of beams, the whisper of wind around corners, the distant bark of a dog walking its nightly patrol. Instead, these sounds become part of the pattern's weaving, transformed from potential disturbances into components of a larger song that speaks only of safety, of rest well earned, of morning still hours away. The innkeeper's wife, whose habit is to check each room before retiring, finds herself moving more slowly through her rounds tonight, not from weariness, but from a deep contentment that makes hurry seem impossible. The pattern settles around her as she walks, and she feels as if she moves through honey made of peace, sweet and golden and perfectly suited to the work of bringing rest to strangers far from home. In the room above the bakery, where the smell of tomorrow's bread already begins to perfume the air, the baker and her husband sleep deeply enough to dream in harmony, their shared patterns weaving together like voices in a duet. The thread from their house, which carried the promise of morning bread, now returns to them multiplied, bringing dreams of grain, growing tall in distant fields, of ovens glowing warm against the cold, of the deep satisfaction that comes from feeding one's community with work that never truly ends. The healer's house receives the pattern-like ground that has waited all season for rain, absorbing it completely, letting it seep into every corner where exhaustion has gathered like dust. Her dreams, when they come, are herbs growing wild in places she has never seen, of healing that happens without intervention, of the deep trust that allows the body to repair itself when given permission to rest. Her cats, who normally spend the night hunting shadows and chasing sounds that human ears cannot detect, settle into purring stillness beside her bed, their small bodies rising and falling with the rhythm of the rain on the roof above. Even they seem touched by the pattern's influence, content for once to let the mice go about their business, while larger magics work their way through the world. The pattern finds the blacksmith's house, where the family sleeps in the untroubled way of those who have never known their needs to go unmet. The children's dreams are full of the sound of water on metal, but transformed now into music gentle chiming that speaks not of work but of play, not of duty but of joy. Their parents' rest runs deeper, heavy with the satisfaction of raising strong children in a world that values honest work and simple pleasures. In the teacher's house, surrounded by books that hold centuries of human wisdom, the pattern settles with particular reverence. Here it finds a mind that has spent decades learning how to shape young thoughts, how to kindle curiosity without overwhelming it, how to plant seeds of knowledge that will grow in their own season. The pattern wraps around these accumulated years of gentle instruction, transforming them into dreams where every lesson taught bears fruit, where every student who has passed through her classroom carries forward some spark of wonder that will never quite dim. Her sleep deepens with the weight of purpose fulfilled, and in her dreams she walks through a library vast as the sky, where every book contains not just words, but the living breath of understanding, where knowledge flows like water from mind to mind, generation to generation, without ever growing less for being shared. The seamstress, who has worked through the evening by lamplight to finish the wedding dress that hangs now like captured moonlight from her workroom beam, feels the pattern settle around her fingers, still shaped by the memory of needle and thread. Her dreams are of fabric that weaves itself, of patterns that emerge without planning, of the deep satisfaction that comes when skilled hands create beauty that will mark life's most precious moments. In her sleep, she sees the young woman who will wear the dress she has finished, sees the joy that will light her face, the tears of happiness that will fall on silk sewn with patient love. The pattern shows her how her work extends beyond the visible, how every careful stitch holds blessings, how beauty created with intention carries forward into the world like ripples from a stone dropped in still water. The musician's house adds its own note to the night's symphony as the pattern finds instruments that rest in cases lined with velvet soft as darkness. Here the pattern does not need to create music, for music exists in the very air, the steady rhythm of rain on different surfaces creating natural percussion, the wind in the eaves adding melody, the distant sound of the stream providing bass notes that anchor all other sounds in their proper relationships. The musician, whose hands know the weight of bow on string, the touch of finger on key, the breath required to wake sleeping brass, dreams of concerts where every listener understands without explanation, where music becomes prayer, and prayer becomes the very substance of peace. In his sleep, he hears harmonies that exist only in the space between waking and dreaming, melodies that speak directly to the heart without need of translation. The village priest, in his small house beside the church, receives the pattern like blessing itself. His prayers, which continue even in sleep, merge with the rain's steady rhythm, creating a meditation that encompasses not just his own rest, but the rest of all those in his care. His dreams are of congregations that stretch beyond the borders of denominations, a faith that requires no proof but manifests as simple trust in the goodness that underlies all things. The pattern finds him particularly receptive, for his life has been spent in the practice of letting go, of trusting larger forces to carry what he cannot lift alone. In his sleep, he walks through a world where every prayer has been answered, not always as requested, but always as needed, with wisdom deeper than human understanding. At the edges of the village, where houses give way to fields and forest, the pattern spreads into wilder places. Here it finds the deer who have bedded down in hollows carved by centuries of wind and rain, the rabbits safe in warrens that tunnel deep beneath the frost line, the owls whose hunting has been gentled by the steady fall of rain that muffles both their flight and their prey's movement. These creatures, who live always at the edge of vigilance, feel the pattern's influence as a loosening of the constant alertness that keeps them alive. For this one night, predator and prey rest in something approaching peace, held by the same threads that comfort the villagers in their beds, connected by the same pattern that speaks of safety, of cycles that can be trusted, of the deep rhythm that encompasses all smaller rhythms. The stream that runs beyond the village, swollen now with the night's rain, adds its voice to the pattern's foundation. The water moves with purpose, but without haste, finding its way round obstacles, carving channels that will serve for seasons to come. Its sound deeper now, more resonant, speaks of patience rewarded, mass of persistence that shapes the world one drop at a time. In the church, where stained glass windows that tell stories of faith and miracle remain dark until dawn's light wakes their colors, the pattern settles with the weight of centuries. Here it finds stones worn smooth by countless hands, wood polished by generations of prayer, space that has held every kind of human sorrow and joy, and has somehow transformed them all into something approaching understanding. The bell in the tower, silent now but ready to wake the village when morning comes, catches the rain that runs down its bronze surface and transforms it into music too subtle for human ears but perfectly audible to the pattern, which incorporates these nearly silent notes into its weaving, creating harmonies that speak of time measured not in hours but in seasons, in lifetimes, in the slow turning of the world toward light. The graveyard beside the church receives the pattern with the deep stillness of those who have finished their work, who have earned their rest through lives fully lived. Here the rain falls on stones that mark not endings, but transformations, on ground that holds the dreams of generations who have gone before, whose sleep has deepened beyond waking into something the living cannot quite understand, but can trust completely. The pattern spreads even here, not disturbing the profound quiet of those who rest beneath the earth, but honoring it, acknowledging that their peace provides the foundation upon which all other rests depend. In this holy ground, the rain falls with particular gentleness, as if recognizing that here patience has been perfected, that here waiting has been transformed into the deepest kind of peace. Back in the weaver's room, the work approaches its culmination. The loom beneath the beam holds now a pattern so complex, so perfectly balanced, that it seems to exist in several dimensions at once, woven not just from the rain's voice, but from the village's needs, the night's possibilities, the deep longing for rest that connects every living thing to every other. The weaver's hands move with the slow certainty of one who has practiced this craft for years beyond counting, placing final threads with the care of a gardener tending the most delicate flowers. Each addition to the pattern changes the whole, creates new relationships between existing elements, opens possibilities that did not exist before. The rain continues its faithful work, neither hurrying toward dawn nor lingering beyond its purpose, but maintaining that steady rhythm that allows the pattern to grow organically, to find its natural completion. From every surface where water meets wood or stone or earth, the threads continue to flow, some strong as rope, others fine as spider's silk, all carrying their gifts of peace toward the waiting loom. In the marketplace, where tomorrow's commerce will bring the village together in the daily work of living, puddles reflect the few lanterns that burn through the night, creating pools of light that seem to hold pieces of the sky. The pattern spreads here too, settling over cobblestones that remember the footsteps of merchants and customers, children and elders, all the countless daily encounters that weave a community together. The pattern encompasses the fountain at the market's heart, where during day children splash and women fill their water jars, where gossip is shared and news spreads, and the small negotiations of village life are conducted with the ease of long familiarity. Tonight, the fountain catches rain as it falls, adding each drop to the water that will serve tomorrow's needs, creating music that speaks of abundance, of resources shared, of the simple trust that underlies all community life. As the deepest hour of night passes, and the first imperceptible lightening of the eastern sky suggests that dawn still waits hours away, but has not forgotten its appointment, the pattern reaches its full complexity. Every thread has found its proper place. Every voice has added its note to the grand symphony of rest that now covers the village, like a blanket woven from rain and moonlight, and the accumulated peace of generations who have learned to trust the night. The weaver stands before the completed work with hands grown still, for the weaving is finished, and now comes the most delicate task of all, the offering of what has been created to those who need it most. This is not a gift that can be forced, but one that must be received freely, allowed to settle where it will do the greatest good. The rain keeps its faithful count, steady as heartbeat, sure as breath. The pattern holds complete upon the loom, a masterwork of invisible threads and patient craft. The village breathes as one great creature finding its rest, settling deeper into sleep with each gentle fall of rain upon the roofs that sheltered dreams. You can rest now. The weaving is complete, and every thread promises comfort until dawn brings its own gifts. The hour has come when night reveals its deepest secret, that darkness is not the absence of light, but the presence of a different kind of seeing. When the weaver's ancient craft reaches its most sacred moment, in the room beneath the beam, the completed pattern rises from the loom like morning mist rising from water, no longer bound by the frame that shaped. It's making but free now to fulfill its purpose. This is the moment the weaver has worked toward through all the patient hours of gathering and weaving. When the threads, drawn from rain and refined by craft, become something more than their origins a gift, so subtle it cannot be seen, so gentle it cannot be felt, yet so powerful it can transform the very quality of rest, turning simple sleep into restoration, ordinary dreams into healing. The pattern moves with its own wisdom now, spreading outward from the weaver's room in waves that carry the essence of every thread that went into its making. It passes through walls as if they were woven from light itself, seeps through the smallest gaps between shutter and frame, settles over the village like snow that falls upward from earth toward sky, defying the ordinary rules that govern weight and substance. In the house where the old man has finally surrendered to sleep in his chair beside the window, the pattern arrives like recognition of a life well lived. It settles around him with the weight of honor, acknowledging the decades of small kindnesses he has offered without thought of reward, the countless moments when he chose patience over anger, understanding over judgment, his dreams already deep with the contentment of one who has learned life's most difficult lessons, take on new dimensions as the pattern works its way through the chambers of memory and hope, who finds himself walking through the village as it existed in his youth, but seeing it now with eyes that hold all the wisdom of his accumulated years. Every face he encounters belongs to someone he has helped. Every house holds memories of assistance offered freely. Every conversation recalls words spoken with a careful kindness that seeks to heal rather than harm. The pattern transforms these memories from simple nostalgia into profound understanding. He sees now how his life has mattered, how the love he has given has taken root in ways he never suspected, how his patient presence has shaped the world more surely than any grand gesture could have done. The young mother, sleeping now beside her baby's cradle, receives the pattern like a promise whispered by the universe itself. It wraps around her with the gentle certainty that she is enough, that her love is sufficient, that the small daily acts of care she offers her child carry more power than she has dared to believe. In her dreams, the pattern shows her seasons still to come, her baby growing strong and confident. Other children who will call her mother, herself grown old and content, surrounded by lives that have flourished in the shelter of her devotion. But the gift goes deeper than personal consolation. The pattern reveals to her that motherhood is not a burden to be carried alone, but part of a vast web of caring that connects her to every woman who has ever rocked a crying infant, every heart that has learned to love so fiercely that fear becomes impossible. She sees herself as part of an unbroken chain of nurturing that stretches back to the first mothers and forward to generations yet unborn, each link strengthening all others, each act of love adding to a treasury that can never be depleted. In where the traveling merchant has finally found the rest that eluded him on the road. The pattern arrives as the answer to a prayer he did not know he was praying. It settles around him like the understanding that home is not a place on any map, but a condition of the heart, that peace can be found anywhere when the soul is properly prepared to receive it. His dreams become journeys through landscapes that exist only in the realm of possibility, roads that lead always toward welcome, inns where every bed is soft and every meal shared with friends, markets where trade enriches not just the purse but the spirit. The pattern shows him that he carries home with him in every step, that the peace he seeks in distant cities has been walking beside him all along, waiting only for a night quiet enough, a heart still enough to make itself known. In his dreams, every stranger becomes teacher. Every transaction becomes opportunity for the kind of human connection that makes travel a blessing rather than a burden. The healer who has spent her life in service to others' pain receives from the pattern the gift she has always needed but never known how to. Request permission to rest without guilt, to sleep without listening for calls that may never come, to trust that healing happens in its own time, according to laws more ancient than human knowledge. Her dreams are of gardens where medicinal herbs grow wild and strong, of patients who recover not through her intervention but through forces larger and wiser than any single practitioner can understand. She sees herself as part of a great tradition of healers that stretches back to the first person who ever offered comfort to suffering, forward to healers yet to be born who will carry the work further than she can imagine. The pattern teaches her that healing and curing are not the same thing, that sometimes the greatest gift she can offer is simply the grace to suffer well, to find meaning in struggle, to discover that peace does not require the absence of pain, but only the presence of love. The blacksmith and his wife, sleeping so deeply they share the same dream space, find in the pattern a celebration of the life they have built together through the daily choice to honor their promises. Their shared dreams are of iron that shapes itself into beauty, of children who grow straight and strong without forcing, of love that deepens rather than diminishes with the passing years. The pattern shows them their marriage as part of a larger tapestry, connected to every other union that has chosen commitment over convenience, growth over stagnation, the long view over immediate gratification. In their dreams, they see their children grown and married themselves, carrying forward the lessons learned in a house where work and rest, duty, prepend, joy, individual needs, and family bonds have found their proper balance. They understand that they have been part of something larger than themselves, that their love has been both gift and responsibility, both blessing and sacred trust. The teacher, surrounded by books that hold the accumulated wisdom of centuries, receives from the pattern the deep satisfaction that comes from understanding how knowledge multiplies when shared, how every lesson taught creates ripples that spread far beyond the original student. Her dreams are of classrooms that span generations, of pupils who become teachers themselves, of understanding passed from hand to hand, like flame that grows brighter when shared rather than dimmer. She sees the village children she has taught now grown and raising families of their own, passing on not just facts and figures, but the love of learning itself, the curiosity that transforms life from burden into adventure. The pattern reveals to her that teaching is more than profession, it is calling. More than work it is worship. More than service it is the highest expression of hope in the future. The seamstress, who has finally set aside her needle with the wedding dress complete, finds in the pattern appreciation for the way patient work creates lasting beauty. The way small stitches accumulated over time can create something worthy to mark life's most precious moments. Her dreams are of fabric that tells stories, of clothes that carry blessings, of the hidden power in work that serves others' deepest joys. She sees the young couple who will wear the dress she finished tonight, sees their children who will someday look at wedding photographs and admire the careful workmanship of hands they never knew, sees how beauty created with love echoes through generations, like ripples on water that never quite find shore. The musician, whose instruments rest silent in their cases while he sleeps, receives from the pattern the gift of hearing music that exists beyond the create when no audience gathers to listen. The harmony that underlies all discord, the rhythm that connects his heartbeat to the pulse of distant stars. His dreams are of concerts where every listener understands without explanation, where every note finds the perfect ear to receive it, where music becomes prayer and prayer becomes music. The pattern spreads beyond individual houses now, encompassing the village as a complete entity, creating connections that bind each sleeper to all others, each personal dream to the greater dreaming of the community. The baker's visions of rising bread connect to the blacksmith's dreams of put-shaped iron, to the healer's hopes for restored health, to the teacher's aspirations for enlightened minds, creating a tapestry where each thread strengthens every other. In the house where the innkeeper and his wife provide shelter for strangers, their rest deepens with the knowledge that their work connects them to the great tradition of hospitality that reaches back to civilizations beginning. Their dreams are of doors that never close against genuine need, of abundance that grows rather than diminishes when shared, of the kind of welcome that transforms strangers into friends and friends into family. Village priest sleeps with hands folded in prayer that continues even in dreams, his rest becoming part of the great river of human longing that flows toward whatever name we give to the source of all peace. His dreams encompass congregations that include not just the faithful, but the searching, not just those who have found answers, but those still learning to ask questions, not just the certain, but the wonderfully, necessarily uncertain. The pattern finds the village's eldest resident, she who has earned her rest through decades of service, and settles around her like honor itself. Her dreams span the full arc of her long life, but transformed by the pattern's touch. Every memory becomes blessing, the hardships that taught endurance, the losses that deepened compassion, the joys that proved life worth living despite its inevitable sorrows. In her dreams, she sees the village not as it is, but as it might become. Generation after generation, building on foundations she helped lay. each adding their own gifts to the common treasury, each finding their own way to serve the continuity that makes community possible. Even the animals feel the pattern's influence tonight. The horses in their stalls dream of meadows without fences. The cats of mice so plentiful that hunting becomes play rather than necessity. The dogs of a world where every stranger proves friend. Every sound signals safety. Every duty transforms into joy. Beyond the village boundaries, wild creatures in forest hollows and riverside dens rest more peacefully than usual. The deer bedded in their hidden clearings, the rabbits safe in their warrens, the birds roosting in branches that bend but do not break, feel the pattern's touch as dreams of springs that never fail, of predators that have no need to hunt, of seasons that bring only gifts. Now, in the quiet room beneath the beam, the weaver prepares to offer the final gift not to any particular sleeper, not to the village as a whole, but to the one who has listened most carefully to the night's work, who has followed the rain's voice and the threads gathering and the patterns, spreading with the attention of one who truly seeks to understand. This final gift is different from all others. It comes not as blessing imposed from without, but as wisdom that can be carried within, used again and again whenever sleep proves elusive, whenever peace seems distant, whenever the mind forgets how to rest. It is the gift of participation in the ancient craft, the knowledge of how to hear the rain's voice speaking directly to the heart, how to gather threads of comfort from whatever storm the night might bring. Listen now, and you will hear what the weaver hears, not just the sound of rain on roof and gutter and stone, but the deeper music that rain creates when it meets a world ready to receive its gifts. Every drop that falls carries within it the possibility of peace. Every surface it touches adds its voice to the symphony of rest. Feel how your breathing begins to match the rain's rhythm, how your heartbeat slows to echo the steady drip from eaves grown heavy with water. This is the beginning of the craft, the recognition that you are not separate from the storm, but part of it, not observer of the rain, but participant in its ancient work of washing the world clean and bringing rest to all who know how to listen. The threads are always there, waiting to be gathered by anyone willing to learn the patience the rain itself teaches. They come from whatever sounds surround you, the whisper of wind through leaves, the distant hum of a city settling toward sleep, the quiet creaking of a house adjusting to the night. Each sound properly heard becomes a thread that can be woven into comfort. The loom exists wherever you are willing to create it, in the space between your ears and your heart, in the pause between one breath and the next, in the moment when you choose to let go of the day's urgencies and trust the night to carry what you cannot. The pattern weaves itself when you stop trying to control its design and simply allow it to grow according to its own ancient wisdom. This is the weaver's final gift, not peace as something given once and lost, but peace as something learned, practiced, discovered anew each time the night offers its quiet classroom. The rain will not always fall, but the skill of listening remains. The threads will change with each storm, but the craft of gathering them can be carried anywhere, used whenever rest is needed and sleep seems distant as dawn. The village breathes now with one rhythm, every house connected to every other by threads invisible but stronger than stone. The pattern holds complete, a masterwork of patience and attention that will last until dawn brings its own gifts and the cycle begins again. But you need not wait for another storm to practice what you have learned tonight. The threads are always therein, the sound of your own. Breathe in the whisper of sheets against skin, in the quiet settling of darkness around you like a blanket woven from starlight and time. The rain keeps its faithful watch, but now you know how to keep watch with it, how to listen for the music that exists in every pause, every drop, every moment when the world grows still enough to hear its own heartbeat. Rest now, knowing that you carry the weaver's gift within you, ability to find peace, not as something granted, but as something recognized. Not as escape from the world, but as deeper participation in its most essential rhythms. The night is nearly spent, but your rest is just beginning. Close your eyes and feel how the darkness holds you, how the quiet wraps around you like familiar arms, how sleep comes not as ending, but as return to the source from which all peace flows, to the stillness from which all sound emerges, to the rest that makes all waking possible. The rain will keep watch until dawn. The threads hold strong in their weaving. The pattern spreads its blessing over all who know how to receive it. You can rest now. You have learned the ancient craft. You carry peace within you like seed, waiting for the proper season to grow. Sleep well and dream deep, and wake refreshed to practice what the rain has taught you.